Welcome back. With us in the studio to shed light on this issue is Dr. Haitham Awad, acting head of Irrigation Engineering and Hydraulics Department at Alexandria University. Pleasure to have you with us. And with us also this evening is Dr. Sharif Al-Khuraibi, member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs and also an expert in African affairs. A pleasure to have you both gentlemen with us.
Thank you, sir.
The issue of the Renaissance Dam, the issue which has been met with quite a lot of controversy, but the bottom line is it was definitely not to the satisfaction or pleasure of 99.9% of the Egyptians. And I'm saying I'm leaving the 0.1% to those that went to Ethiopia and made some kind of compromise negotiations quite a few months ago. How do you see, we are having a meeting between Egypt and Ethiopia and Sudan August 25th and 26th, which is next week. For those who are not following, what is the agenda? What are the points of discussion? And I'll leave this floor open for whoever wants to start.
Okay. First of all, the story of that dam, it's a typical story of high dam of Egypt. We should be honest when we are taking the issue of Renaissance Dam, and to tell the Egyptians and everybody, you know, we used to have a dream called high dam, and we made it. Also they have a dream, and everybody can have a dream, but at the same time, when he is going to fulfill his dream, he shouldn't hurt the others.
Yes.
And it was a scenario at the beginning. It was like this until everybody remember the big meeting which was on air with the former President Morsi. It was a scandal.
I believe this is the 0.1% I was talking about. Yes. And
you know, I remember by that time I was in Mecca and Saudi Arabia, and my friend, the Ethiopian ambassador, he called me, do you watch TV now? No, please open Fadaiya Masriya. And then when I look at it, you know, it was really, really a very big scandal. When we are dealing with our brothers... You
were performing a pilgrim at the time?
No, I was not. I was
just visiting.
Just visiting, yeah.
Okay. Because if you were, I was going to ask you if you prayed. The gods were
actually, I'm a resident in Saudi Arabia, and I have some little business of matter.
Just wondering if at the time you felt like you prayed and the gods were hearing you.
In Mecca, and you're almost welcome to have Umrah there, inshallah, anytime. Anyway, the idea is when that point, because when we are talking about anyone, we should understand that, you know, our brothers and sisters from sub-Saharan African countries are very, very sensitive.
Yes. And,
you know, this sensitivity, it came from colonial time. And they want, you know, to prove, and they proved, because I know a lot of successful Ethiopians in different places in the world. Anyway, that point made them, you know, what does it mean? Egypt is going to announce for a war against us, or what? This is the president of Egypt and gathering all the political parties with him. But because of the ambassador of Ethiopia here, Dr. Direri, he's a very, very excellent man, and he understood by that time what is going on. So, you know, he made the situation calm, and after, of course, President Sisi and Egypt start to take its place again in all of Africa continent, everybody start to, you know, to look at Egypt as, again, as an example, even in its revolution. I'm talking about 30th of June revolution. Yes. And now, from the point Mr. Sisi, His Excellency President Sisi, took his place as a president, I'm sure he started one of the main issues is this point. And when we heard all of his talks about this issue, he is always saying that we are looking for a compromise. Ethiopia, it's our sister country. Ethiopians are our brothers and sisters. So we cannot look for anyone to hurt their dream. And I'm sure they don't want to hurt us as well.
Yes.
So I believe in next week meeting, they will start to have a talk, a compromise solution.
Okay.
This compromise solution may be my friend, he will talk about, because he's a technical man, he's an engineer, but I understand maybe this dam, it will be in stages.
Okay, but I just need, before we go into the technical side, if you can just give us the headlines of this vision, and then we'll go in depth so that people are aware of what are the headlines of our vision.
Our vision is based mainly, according to what mentioned, is a point of statement declared between President Sisi and Mr. Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Hailemariam Desalegn, and which has been also mentioned by our Prime Minister and Mr. Teodor Adhanom, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Ethiopia, that it is based on the 7 points declared in this point of statement. The most 4 important point, number 1, that Ethiopia will respect the importance of Nile water to Egypt. Second point, that Egypt will respect or understand the needs of Ethiopia for development. The third point, that we should collaborate between us as the 3 countries in reducing the water losses in Nile Basin. And the fourth important point, that we should not look to the water only, but looking also to other projects not related to water, related to education, health, investment, any other.
So working on bilateral or trilateral cooperation.
So those are the 4 main important points mentioned already in the point of statement, already declared in Malabo in Equatorial Guinea since after President Sisi has become a president of Egypt.
Yes.
So based on those 4 points, the main point coming here is the Renaissance Dam. So Egypt has some concern about that project, that it will maybe affect negatively the water coming to Egypt. So the 4 important points will be discussed at that meeting. The first point is the time of filling of that reservoir. The second point is the operational rule of that reservoir. The third point is the volume of that reservoir or that dam. And the 4th point is the water usage of that dam.
Yes.
So those 4 points.
The 5th point about.
There is another 4 point. Yes.
No, I mean the most important one, because that area, the soil itself, it's
dam safety. Yes.
The dam safety.
I was going to address this issue because there's
another 4 point dam safety
impact,
also.
The impact
if it collapses, because according to initial studies,
it will destroy,
it is not safe.
it will destroy all of Sudan. All of Sudan.
On the agenda there is 8 points. Those 4 points, the volume of the reservoir, time of emptying, pressure rules, and water usage are the most 4. There is another 4 points. The power trade. We suffer here in Egypt from electricity shortage. Maybe if we find some proposal of collaboration between Egypt and Ethiopia, that we could export or import some. So those other 4 points are, as Dr. Sharif has mentioned, the dam safety, and also electrical power trade. The third point, some environmental impact, and also collaboration in other issue related, because we want to solve not for that dam. Ethiopia has another plan to build another dams upstream. So we should find a big solution for the sharing the water on the Nile River. So I think that the 4 points should address at the same time, and in a very good atmosphere between our Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation, Professor Hassan Mughazi, with his colleague Mr. Alamayo Tegno, the Minister of Irrigation in Ethiopia, also with the Minister of Irrigation in Sudan. So I am.
Let us first knock out the issue of the safety, because lots of reports came out that building this dam that way, which was enlarged all of a sudden, is of extreme danger, because predictions are, or according to scientific calculations, the dam will collapse and a country like Sudan can
totally will be
destroyed. Is this
I mean, technical-wise,
From a technical point of view, do you think that if this dam will collapse, it will affect Egypt more than Sudan, or Sudan more than Egypt?
According to the port, I'm not a technical person,
Yes,
but according
for sure,
to reports,
Sudan more than Egypt.
Sudan
So,
before us.
Sudanese people are not talking about that issue comparing to us. Why? Because just looking at the risk, anything in that engineering has a risk. Sudan suffer from the risk of flood. This year was the flood has due 55% has died, maybe 5,000 houses has been destroyed in Sudan from the flooding.
So you're saying that you don't think there is a risk?
There is a risk, even so anything.
But if there is a risk, then why was Sudan accepting such an issue when it will?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a political issue. And you know, Sudan sometimes when they are talking about anything related to Egypt, it depends how the relationship between Egypt and Sudan is.
Even if it means destroying myself.
You know, I'm telling you, because I am sure, and we are keen as Egyptians, or as Egyptian government, about Sudan in this issue, maybe more than the Sudanese themselves. When doctor is saying that they are suffering from floods, if that dam will be collapsed, it will not be a flood. It will be just a destroy for the whole country.
Yeah.
So, and any risk, yes, everything has a risk, but you know, calculated risk. I mean, if it is 1%, 2%, but
according to studies, it's not a 1 or 2%.
In such projects, risk should be 0%. We cannot accept even 0.5% as a risk ratio in that such projects, because it's a matter of existing or non-existing of.
So you think the acceptance is an apolitical issue?
It's a political issue, and they are doing it. I mean, as I told you, the government of Sudan, they are from time to time, it depends. Right now, I think the relationship between the Egyptian and Sudanese government is good, and they are looking for cooperation, you know, especially when we are talking about the trade or investment or whatever. Egyptian investments in Sudan last 6 years exceeds $10 billion US, and the new road in Wadi Halfa and the coming road in Arkin Point,
yes,
and the border, so everything is moving well. And Sudan is getting, or you mean the benefit of Sudan even is more than the benefits of Egypt, and we are happy for this. We start to import Sudanese beef, we start to do a lot of things. We have a lot of agricultural projects as Egyptian investors in Sudan. So I expect this time, because the relation is good, so that one, or that issue, especially the risk of the dam, is going to take place during the next week meeting. And I think, and it's a matter, you know, because it's honestly at the end, because this, even international experts, when they made their evaluation for the project, they didn't touch this point. Although all of the technicians and experts related to dams structures, they mentioned this, and this area, especially this area. I myself, because I understand that the flood this year is maybe the biggest in the last 20 or maybe 50 years.
50 years, since 1964, yes.
Since 1964, so
could this be an incentive for Sudan to rethink its position in establishing this dam?
The risk from engineering point of view is equal to probability multiplied by the impact. So we have two risks, risk of dam failure and risk of flood. For sure the probability of flood is higher than the probability of dam failure. But the impact of dam failure will be higher than the impact of flood. So if you multiply those two quantities, what risk will be higher?
The dam.
The risk of dam failure or the risk of flood?
The risk of dam failure, according...
Because the probability, risk equal probability multiplied by the impact.
Yes.
If you say the probability of dam failure is 1%, for example, and you multiply 1% by the impact, which is equal 1,000, so you get a value of the risk. On the other hand, you have a probability of flood, which is about 60 or 70%, because Sudan suffer from that issue, multiplied by the impact of the flood, which is for sure lower than the impact of dam failure. But you could, after multiplying those two
So
quantities,
from an engineering perspective, to make it easier for our viewers, what is more risky, the flooding or the collapsing of the dam?
risky, from my point, the flooding. Because we have played that
Okay.
in Aswan High Dam, we believe, imagine that the Aswan High Dam will be failed. What will be the impact? Egypt will be destroyed, but the probability is very low. So we as Egyptian in 1960, we have decided to build that dam because we have seen at that time that the risk of flooding is higher than the risk of dam
But
failure.
when we built the dam, it was based on concrete, scientific.
The Aswan High Dam is not concrete, it's rockfill dam.
No, this is not what I'm
engineering,
saying. I'm saying concrete, scientific
sorry.
basis, not
Sorry,
concrete
sorry,
as in
sorry.
the material
Yeah,
concrete.
yeah.
But when most scientists tell you the building of this dam with those specs will lead to its collapse, and you go ahead and do it, you're exchanging a devil for another devil.
There is some concern, and this issue will be discussed in
Should
that
it be
meeting.
built that way? This is what we're...
If you allow me to make a
Yes,
comment
yes,
on
yeah,
this
yeah.
issue, we cannot compare the risk of floods with the risk of dam collapse. As I told you, dam collapse,
What will happen if the dam collapses?
I'm
Complete
telling you,
destroy of
it will
Sudan
destroy.
and Egypt will be affected, yes.
Up to Aswan.
This is the impact, but there is also the probability. Risk equal probability multipliers in impact.
How many cubic meter will be in
74 billion.
you remember, you imagine 74 billion
But
cubic
imagine that
meter
Sudan
of-
agree. They want to play that risk. They prefer to build that dam.
No.
I understand this, but according to Dr. Sharif, it's really a political
Yes,
issue
yes,
rather more
completely
than...
agree with Dr. Sharif.
Maybe sometimes you're not taking the right decision
Yeah,
necessarily.
and these people maybe they are looking at the matter in the way, okay, maybe what will happen, okay, let us, and of course the government of Sudan in front of their people, for every time they have a strong floods like this year.
They have to come up with a solution.
I was in Sudan 2008 in Khartoum, and the flood was very big also by that time, and it was something, you know, it's something crazy. I was scaring even to go just in the riverside. So they want to prove for their people that even there are cooperation with another country to stop this issue. But I cannot solve a small fire
By igniting a building.
by destroying everything, even with, as I told you, 0.5% probability.
Okay, if we move on because of our time constraint, when you said one of the issues topping the agenda would be respecting Egypt's rights of the Nile water. How do you think this can be realized?
From both Ethiopia and Sudan, I think that it will be based on a complete platform which will be signed at that meeting. They will respect, for sure, our water rights. At the same time, we should present for them another solution, for example, power trade, or we could make, for example, agriculture project in another basin not related to that basin of Blue Nile.
With the basis of what? Of not building this dam? When you say,
No.
what's the end? What are we trying to achieve?
We are trying to achieve that we will not have a significant harm on Egypt from building that dam.
But we will build. But the dam will be built.
The dam will be built, yes, I believe in that.
Yes,
for
but
sure.
it's not in that size. I mean, it will be in smaller size.
Yes.
And they can, instead of having a giant dam like this one, and this is even, it will minimize the risk of the dam collapse. They can have, like in what is happening in the White Nile River in Uganda. They give concession for about 15 people or 14 investors to have a hydropower project on the White River. Each one, it's very small. I mean, even the power, it's mainly for power generation. The power is going to be generated from each one. The higher one is 100 mega, which is nothing, which is Owen Dam. And also they have Bujagali Dam, also about 100 mega. But they have smaller dams, and especially Russians, developed how to make a small hydropower. You can have a hydropower project for 1 mega, for 2 mega, for 15 mega. So this is the idea.
To replicate this in Ethiopia.
Exactly. Ethiopia should follow it. For Ethiopians to have their dreams, for Sudan to minimize or to finish the risk of the dam collapse at all, because if they have many dams, small dams, even if one of them collapsed, it will not hurt, because the water, the reservoir water is not huge, it will destroy. And maybe the dam, after the one collapsed, it will protect. And so this is the only way. And I think they reached to this compromise. And at the end, the cooperation between the Nile Basin countries, because our Nile resources, we have the east resource from Ethiopia, and we have the south resource from Lake Victoria. The east resource represents about 85% of the water coming to us, and only 15 from coming from Lake Victoria. So we should, have a solution. By this solution, the dream of Ethiopians we are respecting. It's their right, totally their right. The Renaissance Dam, it will happen.
Totally the right without harming or
without hurting the others. On the other hand, as I said, we should not be hurted.
So you think we'll be hearing within the next few days or weeks that the compromise is that instead of building this huge dam, maybe a smaller
mini dams. I believe we will reach to not a compromise, we will reach to an agreement
that this will happen.
It will happen before end of the year.
The agreement, the size of dam is one of the 4 main topics. They could build a small dam, but they will use all the water in irrigation. So at that time, if they will build higher size but not using the water for irrigation, it will be a less negative impact to Egypt. The size of dam is one of the most
the size of the dam is a concern for Sudan.
Size of the dam, water usage, and also the time of filling the reservoir and the operation rule. They could, for example, storing all the water and release the water in just 1 month, not on the 12 months. Those 4 technical problems should be solved simultaneously. If they will, even so, they will make 1 billion reservoir and they will use all this water in irrigation, so it will have a negative impact of Egypt. But if they will build that with 74, but they sign that they will not use that for irrigation, and I believe that because that dam is in the lowest area of Ethiopia and at the end with the border of Sudan. The main negative impact which could affect Egypt is the irrigation expansion in Sudan. Because if you have a land in Sudan, the water will be regulated around the year, so this will encourage Sudanese farmers to make 1 or 2 or 3 crops during the year, and this will reduce the impact of, the amount of water. So what I could say clearly that a lot of Egyptians are making a project. We are with the irrigation expansion in Sudan within their share of 18.5 billion meter cube. So this is the main concern of myself, that irrigation expansion is the high risk. For sure the dam failure and also the evaporation rate from the reservoir and water leakage and also the dam, all those are main concern. Another important issue I want to clear, this was not the first dam. Ethiopia has built a Tikizi dam on the Adbara River, which is about 25% of that dam, Tikizi dam. What happened this year during the flood? A lot of water coming through Blue Nile, which flood all the area around Blue Nile region. But in Adbara, they have this dam, the Tikizi dam, has prevent flooding from water in all Adbara region. So coming to, if you take the opinion of Sudanese, they are completely with that dam because they want to prevent flooding from, yes.
But according to us, it has to be of reasonable size to ensure that it does not affect
and also
our
water
water
usage.
supply.
Yes.
And how the water is used, should we say water usage or allowance?
Yes, allowance.
Usage, not allowance.
And also their plan to build another dam in the upstream. They have Akobo, Bindaya, Mabil. They have a plan to build about...
gentlemen, we cannot separate it's really a political issue.
Yes, political.
And
And legal issue also.
And the issue right now is maybe that most people are concerned that we can come to an agreement. We already have an agreement. And some parties have reneged on this agreement and have chosen to change the context of that agreement. And that answers the legal side.
Yes.
We can have an agreement drawn or drafted this month or next month or whatever. And we can have another reneging of this agreement.
You know, any agreement we're rich, it should keep the historical rights of Egypt.
Yes.
It will not touch our share of the Nile water. I'm telling you. I'm assuring you this. Okay?
Why are you so sure? I mean, they're putting a tap to the water.
They cannot stop.
And they have the right to close the tap if they...
I'm telling you, they cannot...
No, they don't have the right.
not right, but they have the capability of closing the tap.
And no, they cannot.
Why can't they?
Just to closing that, they cannot.
Why?
Why? Because
if
they want to release water,
they will destroy their dam. Finish.
And for,
it should go.
For maximize their benefit, they should release water to produce
They don't
energy.
have to close it, but they can tighten it a little bit so that the supply...
To maximize the power generation, they should release the maximum volume of water, because the electricity generation is a function of the quantity of water. If they will keep that dam without releasing a drop of water, they will not produce energy.
They will destroy it.
But coming to the legal issue, we have already an agreement between Egypt and Sudan in which Sudan's share is 18.5 billion. Till this moment, Sudan has built a Marwi dam in which the evaporation losses is about 2 billion meter cube. Till this now, Sudan mentions that these 2 billion are not from its share, and Egypt, there is a of understanding or
my point of view that we should not touch the legal points because it is not our role. And I'm sure we'll not reach to go to legal steps. I am sure, 100%. By all means, very soon, before end of this year, we are reaching for a compromise to solve this issue totally by keeping Egypt right and whatever. When my friend is saying that Sudan is using the water of the Nile for irrigation and I am totally against this point as well. Sudan, they have right to use water.
18.5.
And 18.5 or even more if it will not touch. If it will not touch.
If it will exceed, the water exceed, should, according to the legal issue, should be distributed equally.
My friend, I am investor in Sudan. In agriculture. And I have this debate with Dr. Mahmoud Abu Zaid,
the former Minister of Water Resources.
And Dr. Hussein Al-Atfi and all of these ministers. And we agreed, because one year, like this year, when the flood is too high and we have our share already and it comes and they have also extra, why not to use it? And we should be, because Sudanese, whatever they are going to do to develop their countries or whatever, Sudan is it's ours. The advantage of Sudan, it's for ours. The benefits of Sudan, we are fighting for making development, real development.
Okay, let me address another issue, and because, as I said, we cannot detach it from politics.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Sudan has been a victim
Yes.
of Western meddling. It did not escape what we, touch wood, managed to escape, which is to divide. The plan is to divide and conquer. Until a few years ago, we had one united Sudan. Now you have the north and the south.
Yeah, but also tens of years ago, Egypt and Sudan, they were one country.
I understand, but
so sometimes
the problem is that those who are stepping in and meddling, could they not step in and meddle to use the water issue to twist your arm?
No, never.
Since they have really failed in other plans and they want to look for a way.
When we are deciding to go away from politics, again we are coming back to politics.
Because this is politics.
It's a politics. But I'm telling you, because without explanation, I mean, I don't want to, because I'm not a politician. I'm at the end economical expert and also investor in agriculture in Sudan. The idea is very simple. When it comes to life and death, the situation will be different. And they know this very well. And anyone reads the history of Egypt, Egypt is very, very, very wisdom and patient nation. They can accept different situations from any, because Egypt, it's a very big state with a great history. But when it comes to the point that yes, this is matter of, as I told you, life and death, you will see the reaction, as we did in the history. I don't want to mention. At the same time, right now, Egypt is leading again the Nile Basin countries to have a real integration in economic, environment, all of other affairs. And our hopes as a businessman, because I know I'm working in Nile Basin countries for 20 years now. And as a businessman and official from Nile Basin countries now, even from these people, our friends from South Sudan, they recognize that Egypt's role is very, very important. And since President Sisi time, I mean, he took Egypt again to its place. It's the right place. Again, a third point. You know, Mr. As-Sadiq al-Mahdi is a former prime minister, and you know, I cannot say he's in opposition party in Sudan because he's a public figure, not only in Sudan but in Nile Basin countries. He's right now in Egypt, and I was with him 2 days ago. You know what he is telling me? You know, he is the head of Al Ummah party in Sudan. He said that, you know, us, we are Al Ummah party. We fought for, dividing Egypt and Sudan. Now we are fighting to take Egypt back to play its role. No, it is not important to be one country, but we have the model of European Union.
Yes.
Why not we have Nile Basin Union one day? So this is, you will see. And I mean, we are organizing, but we organized last year the first international conference for economical integration among the Nile Basin countries, and it was successful. And the official representatives and businessmen from Nile Basin countries attended, and the second round will take place end of October. And I'm inviting you and your program to attend and to cover. So nothing is impossible, but it should be fair. I mean, win-win, equivalent, at the same time, good faith. If we do this, because I'm living in Ethiopia, in Uganda, in Kenya, in Sudan for 20 years now, since 1994. They love Egypt. All of these people, they love Egypt. The officials, most of them, they get their education in Egypt, either in Al-Azhar University for Muslim people, or others in Cairo University or whatever.
Yes, yes.
So all of them, they are belong to Egypt. They want to be with Egypt.
Okay.
That's it.
Dr. Haytham, if you can give us just a message to the people that are concerned from a technical perspective.
About the negative impact or the positive
about this dam. Should we be as concerned as maybe the media made us concerned?
No.
I'm a member of the media, so I'll say maybe we did.
The main concern that we receive almost a constant amount of water, and this dam could have a negative impact on that water came to Egypt, and also could have a positive impact. Let's say what about positive impact. As I mentioned about the negative impact, the Sudanese share of irrigation and also the evaporation rate from that dam and the losses and also the dam failure, those are negative concern. But there is also a positive concern. Imagine that during the flood seasons from 1999 to 2002, the water in Lake Nasser has been completely filled with water, and we have spilled about 40 to 45 billion meter cube to Toshka depression. In that case, if this dam will be built, this water will be stored and the amount of water coming to Egypt will increase. The regulation of water flow could increase the amount of water coming. Preventing from the principles of hydrology, if the water running in the river and you build a dam, the water will increase, not decrease. Why? Because you are preventing flooding from that river to the banks. So storing this water in the mainstream, that means that the total amount of water which will be arrived in Egypt could increase. And this, for the understanding of Egyptian, when we built the Aswan High Dam, we have distributed 84 billion meter cube of water. But before that, it was just 52. Where is the difference of the 32? Before that, building Aswan High Dam, there is 32 billion meter cube of water coming and flooding all Egyptian and reaching the Mediterranean. So you have transferred this amount to water usage between Egypt and Sudan, and also evaporation losses through Lake Nasser. So that topic has positive and negative impact. We should understand to minimize the impact of the negative factors and maximize the positive impact of that dam. Based on the win-win situation between Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia, let us explain a very simple. If they will store water, from our benefits that we want that water to come before the summer season to maximize this water for irrigation and energy production in Aswan High Dam. And they want to release it as soon as possible to generate electricity. So this is a compromise issue between Egypt and Ethiopia. So the power trade is a key solution. If we will get a good agreement about power trade, this dam will generate about 15,000 gigawatt hour per year, which represent about 10% of energy produced in Egypt. This power, if we could import this power and export it again during night time, we could reduce the impact of electricity shortage in Egypt. This is one of the solutions in addition to the nuclear power plant, that photovoltaic panels and. So this could be a key issue to be discussed also in that meeting, the power trade between the three countries.
Yes.
Another important issue is that during the African-American Summit held at the beginning of this month, Ethiopia has successfully got from an initiative from President Obama, a $5 billion to power trade Africa. In addition to that, their support of the United States to what is called LAP-SET project, a corridor between South Sudan and Ethiopia through Lamu port in the north of Kenya. So they have successfully got a good deals with the United States. We should understand this impact also on the political issue for our politicians during their negotiation. In addition to that, if you...
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The political aspect.
Another important issue, United States had formed a new forces between 6 African countries. Ethiopia is one of them. And for military purpose, they paid for them $550. And last week, a new force has been formed between Sudan and Ethiopia. All those 5 news should be put on the understanding of agenda of our Egyptian negotiation during our negotiation with our brothers and friends in Ethiopia and Sudan.
Which is what I was saying.
Yes, it is not a technical.
And Dr. Schiff was saying you're dragging us to politics. You see, we closed this door, so they're trying to open that door.
Technician, politics, legal issue.
Yes. Gentlemen, unfortunately our time is up. Thank you very much for joining us. Africa, a continent extremely rich, and it has been abused a lot in the past. Let us hope in future we can serve the interests of the people of Africa before anyone else. And on that note, I wish you a very pleasant evening. Tomorrow, another day and another debate, and good night.